Good evening, everyone. My name is Sonam Tashi. I'm from Sikkim. I'm a proud designer. Thank you, Sudhi, IndiDesign, for inviting me here. Uh, it's for me, it's a very important meet, this one, because the story of the Indian Himalayan region has to be told, and nothing better than this platform to actually share this with you. So my presentation is basically on something that we developed a model called the creative mountain economy. Uh, Basically, this is mostly about case studies about design in the Indian Himalayan region. Uh, so when I say the Indian Himalayan region, basically we're talking about 10 Indian Himalayan states and now 2 Indian Union territories. So as you can see, it's just this huge wall right in between India and China. So, like Ira mentioned, that my work is very context-driven, and the context in my case is basically that I come from Sikkim. So it's the first organic state in India. It's supposedly we claim ourselves to be the cleanest state in India. It also has the Kanchenjunga National Park, which is the first site in India to be recognized as a World Heritage Site in the nature and culture category. It's very important in context to what I'm going to present later. And it shares 2 international borders with China, Bhutan, and Nepal. So other part of the context is that 80% of the states in the Indian Himalayan region shares international borders to various important trade passes with the world's largest economy, China and Southeast Asia. This hasn't been explored so far because of our not so great bilateral relations. 76% of the Indian hill districts fall within the Indian Himalayan states and are mostly mountainous. So that's almost about 40% of the Indian states and the Indian Union. 25% of Earth's land surface is covered by mountains and the hills and plays a vital role in preserving the ecosystem services. 65% of the entire geographical area of these states is mountainous, and the average forest cover is 65%. In Sikkim's case, it's 87%, 83%. 172 out of 573 scheduled tribes are in the Indian Himalayan region, and their entire dependency is on agriculture, very recently tourism. That's what has been changing over the past few years. This says a lot also because I think when you talk about scheduled tribes, which means Adivasis, basically means forest dwellers, so you can just understand the context when it comes down to communities living in the mountains and what nature means to them. 60 to 80% of fresh water among essential ecosystem services is supported by the mountains. So basically, whatever we do, what kind of development that we bring into the mountains, we have a huge responsibility in our hands in terms of figuring out the models of development, because downstream it's going to affect everybody. So I'm just going to very quickly, for the larger audience, share a visual representation of one of the contexts, which is to do with food and how different states actually depend on food, and then I'll continue. So this is in Meghalaya, where basically people, fish. This is how they go for their food. This is in Ladakh. This is apricot season. It is in Himachal Pradesh. It's mostly almost barren in the Spiti Valley, but still they have figured out innovative ways to sustain their agriculture. This is saffron in Jammu and Kashmir. This is the only all-women's market in Manipur. This is in Darjeeling. This, again, is Sikkim. This is Assam, Uttarakhand, and I don't have Tripura slide here, but the whole point of those slides is to actually explain to you that there's so much of diversity when it comes to food and why we need to focus on this for the future food security of this country. We basically are losing on a day-to-day basis our indigenous crops. Also, there's a dietary shift to package and process food markets, and it's not helping because of tourism. So what we did is basically, I'll just share some examples of the work we're doing. So in 2017, 18, we were approached by the State Council of Education Research and Training to help them to develop new textbooks for the government schools in Sikkim. So this was for the first time we were going to contextualize content focused on the mountainous regions, in this case Sikkim. So just an example, so basically what we started doing is we started introducing a lot of local content in terms of food and everything in subjects like English, maths, and EVS. This is a story of a vegetable seller called Debu. So this is a chapter in maths. So here you're using storytelling and local content to explain concepts of profit and loss, also through human-wildlife conflict, and again through things like World Environment Day, where there are different kinds of local saplings which are being planted. So then we also have now introduced local folklores, which used to be all oral. Now these are all, again, now introduced in the textbooks as subjects, not only in EVS, but in maths and in English also. Where I grew up, reading a lot of Jack and Jill and, a lot of content which is not relatable. But now children in Sikkim will have a lot of content in the textbooks which are very contextualized, this there in the embedded environment. So that's basically the tea star, the story of the tea star and the Rangeet. That's basically the visual reference for that. And this is basically a reference of a hard day. Now these are being replaced by malls and by fancy, supermarkets, etc., all of that. But here this entire chapter is really about not only showing a marketplace, but a social space, and also a cultural space. So this is basically a picture reading exercise, where children and all are all introduced a lot of these traditional knowledge systems in the market space. Again, a lot of local architecture was also introduced. Local materials used in architecture was also kind of integrated with the learning outcomes of the textbooks. So that was EcoStream, the consultancy. So eventually what happened was that we realized that this consultancy is not going to work out. Doesn't pay well also. So we then kind of like started bootstrapping back our profits and our experience back into our products. So we followed a concept called form follows concern. This is after 10 years of introspecting that, what we are really good at. And we found out that all our work was based on some concern or the other. So just 4 or 5 case studies that are there. So one of the concerns basically is to do with livelihood. So we give an example of bamboo in the tea sector. So this is basically what development tourism does. It leaves behind a lot of waste. So this is basically a landfill now in the mountains. So you don't only see mountains with pretty mountain views and all that, you see this kind of mountains also now. So then we basically integrated the bamboo sector with the tea sector, where we introduced zero waste packaging systems, where the packaging was also integrated with livelihoods. Sometime back, there was a panel discussion on mobility. Our interpretation of mobility is slightly different. So this is basically for us mobility. Taking things up the road, down the road, places which doesn't have access. So we did a lot of study in terms of what different kinds of mobility challenges that are there. We came with a product called Tok Tok. So the Tok Tok is basically a product which looks at the last mile mobility in the mountains regions. And we started with just a freight-based product, which is mostly carries about 40 kilos of load, mostly household loads. And this can be basically there's a back strap also, we can carry it on your back. Then there's healthcare systems, again, similar to mobility. We're looking at preventive healthcare systems. People die just because they don't have access to healthcare with things like fever and stuff like that, because the healthcare, by the time they reach the healthcare service is too late. So yeah, this is basically how it looks like. Patient has to be carried on the back and taken down to the nearest healthcare system. So we basically studied all of that, and we came with the product called Menla. So this basically is a online, offline services, not only for citizens, but also for the healthcare workers. Because we figured out that healthcare workers don't know, they don't have the data when it comes down to who is ill, where help is needed. So we came out with an app called Menla. Then another critical thing across the Himalayan region is climate change. This is Kalin Singhi on your left. He's 52 years, comes from a community called the Rokpas. They're mostly sheep herders. So now, because tourism and all the other different kinds of livelihood have come, so they have decided not to continue livestock. Because of that, a lot of the livestock cattle, which goes up on the higher alpine regions, there's some part of the place have become like deserts now because the droppings of these yaks and things were the only fertilizers in the high altitude regions. But now there's a discontinuity that. So he came to us saying that he wanted to sell 300 of his Tibetan sheep. And with that money, he wanted to get married because he was living a lonely life. All his friends have started another trade. So we started this textile as a memory project. We trying to revive all the old natural dyes. I'll just move on. Again, mountain livelihoods. These are some of the products that we make with bamboo. Alternative hospitality models. Now we started a brand called Work from the Himalayas. This is during the COVID. Now I think everyone's doing it. But that time it was catered towards bringing all the freelancers and smaller studios to Sikkim, to a safe environment to work. If you guys want to come along, join us, please feel free. This is our office. Then there's a Barfok project, again, similar livelihood project. We're looking at 200 plus direct employment, 100 plus indirect employment. And then this is the last project. It's called Chubaku. So this is Chuba village in South Sikkim. This is the Gurung community. This is their Banpala sheep. Now, the similar exercise like the Tibetan sheep wool, this is also going after extinction. But this was a little different. There it was a group of herders. This is the entire village. This is not only the livestock people, these are the weavers also. So then we actually did a design intervention there where we kind of bought a new design, new methods, new techniques. We didn't bring it, we collaborated with them and then we figured out new techniques. These are some of the designs. So this is what the creative economy, mountain economy model is. It's a model proposed to integrate the aspirations of communities living in the fragile ecosystems with various challenges of human development and growth. These are the different sectors, 25 different sectors that we work in. Professor Ranjan identified 230 sectors. Unfortunately, in my lifetime, I think I could probably just do 25. So what are we doing? So we're creating value, collaborating with students, entrepreneurs, communities, environment, designers, markets, institutions, and government. Thank you. So this is my small presentation. Thank you so much.